You're the quietest person in your family. Nobody asks for your opinion. Nobody expects much from you. And if someone had to guess who would become a millionaire first, your name probably wouldn't even make the list. Because most of us grow up believing the same thing. The loudest person succeeds. The confident person gets ahead. The person who can command attention is the one who wins. And the quiet ones? They fade into the background. They get overlooked. They get underestimated. But what if that's not true? What if the future millionaire isn't the loudest person in the family, but the quietest? What if, while everyone else is busy proving themselves, one person is quietly building a completely different future? No announcements, no bragging, no attention, just years of silent work that nobody notices, until one day, the people around them realize something shocking. The quietest person in the family has become the one who made it the furthest. Today, you'll follow the journey of someone everyone underestimated, someone whose silence was mistaken for weakness, but behind that silence, he was building a life that would eventually make him a millionaire. And the most surprising part? Nobody in his family realized it was happening until it was already done. Growing up, you learned that the loudest people got noticed first. At family gatherings, there was always someone filling the room with stories, an uncle talking too much, a cousin showing off a new job, a new car, or some new achievement. Laughter bounced from one side of the room to the other, and everyone seemed to have something worth saying. You usually didn't, not because you had nothing on your mind. You just never felt the need to compete for attention. So you sat back and listened. Over time, people started creating a story about you. The quiet one, the shy one, the ordinary one, the one who would probably live a normal life and stay out of trouble. Nobody said it out loud, but you could feel it. Whenever conversations turned toward the future, your name rarely came up. Nobody wondered what you might build one day. Nobody talked about your potential. The spotlight always seemed to land somewhere else, on the cousin with the big personality, on the relative who could walk into a room and instantly own it, on the people who looked successful before they had actually achieved anything. And after a while, you started noticing something strange. The less people expected from you, the more invisible you became. At family events, you could spend an entire evening listening without anyone asking what was going on in your life. Most people assumed they already knew the answer. Nothing special, nothing unusual, just the quiet kid being quiet. What they couldn't see was that silence and emptiness are not the same thing. Some people talk because they have something to prove. Others stay quiet because they're busy becoming something nobody expects. From the outside, your life looks completely ordinary. You go where you're supposed to go. You do what you're supposed to do. Nothing about you stands out. Nothing about your routine would make anyone think you're building a different future. That's why nobody pays much attention. But what people don't see is what happens after everyone else goes to sleep. The house gets quiet. The television turns off. The conversations stop. And that's when your second life begins. While other people scroll endlessly through the same feeds, you're reading something. A book, an article, a case study. Anything that helps you understand how money, business, and opportunity actually work. One question leads to another, then another, then another. You start watching videos late into the night. You pause them every few minutes to write something down. Ideas, observations, questions, things that suddenly make the world look different than it did yesterday. A notebook slowly fills with thoughts that nobody knows exist. Small plans, possible businesses, investment ideas, goals you're not ready to tell anyone about, not because they're impossible, because they're fragile, and fragile things don't need attention. They need time. So you keep them to yourself. Your family walks past your room and assumes nothing is happening. They think you're wasting time. They think you're just sitting there. They think tomorrow will look exactly like today. What they don't realize is that while nothing seems to be changing on the outside, something is changing every single day on the inside. Your knowledge is growing. Your perspective is changing. Your ambitions are getting bigger. And little by little, you're becoming a completely different person than the one everyone thinks they know. At some point, the difference stops being what you do and starts becoming how you think. The people around you still see money the same way they always have. Money comes in, money goes out. The goal is simply to make enough to stay comfortable, but your perspective begins to change. While others think about salaries, you start thinking about assets. While others spend first and save what's left, you save and invest before you spend. While most people focus on next weekend, you're thinking about where you'll be 5 or 10 years from now. It's a subtle shift, but it changes everything. You begin noticing opportunities where others see ordinary things: a business, an investment, a skill that can be turned into income. The quiet person in the room hasn't become louder. He simply started asking different questions. And those questions are slowly leading him toward a completely different future. For a long time, it feels like nothing is happening. You learn, you study, you work, and yet the outside world looks exactly the same. Then one day something changes. Not $1 million, not financial freedom, just a small win. Maybe it's your first sale, maybe it's your first client, maybe it's the first month where the numbers finally move in the right direction. To anyone else, the amount would seem insignificant, but to you, it means everything. Because for the first time, an idea inside your head becomes something real. Someone you've never met pays for something you created. A number appears in your account that wasn't there yesterday, and suddenly, this no longer feels like a dream. It feels possible. You stare at the screen longer than you should. Not because of the money, because of what the money represents. Proof. Proof that you're not wasting your time. Proof that the late nights mattered. Proof that the future you've been imagining might actually exist. The amount is small, but the belief it creates is enormous. For the first time, you stop wondering if it can happen, and start wondering how far it can go. At first, the people around you don't know what to make of the change. You still look the same. You still talk the same. You still show up like the same quiet person they have always known. But inside, something has shifted. The questions in your head are different now. The way you spend your time is different now. And the life you are building no longer fits inside the life they assume you are living. So when you try to explain it, the words never come out right. You say you're working on something. You say you're learning. You say things are starting to move. But from their side, nothing looks different yet. That is where the gap begins. Your family does not fully understand it. Your friends do not fully understand it. And slowly, without any dramatic fight, some of the people around you begin to drift farther away. Not because they hate you, not because you changed into someone cruel, but because your life is starting to move in a direction they cannot fully follow, so you stop explaining as much. You stop trying to convince people who were never going to see it. And you put that energy back into the work. More reading, more building, more late nights, more silent progress. It is strange because on the outside, your success still looks invisible. Nothing in the room announces what is happening. Nothing about your life looks impressive yet. But the gap is real now. The old version of you is slowly falling behind. And even if nobody else can see it yet, you can feel it. You are no longer just hoping for change. You are living inside it. By now, something real is happening. Not loudly, not publicly, but steadily. The numbers begin to move in the right direction. A little more income this month. A little more saved than last month. A little more invested than before. Nothing dramatic enough for other people to notice, but enough for you to notice. And that matters more. Because this is the part nobody claps for. The part where progress is too slow to celebrate, but too real to ignore. From the outside, your life still looks almost unchanged. You still wear the same kind of clothes. You still keep the same quiet habits. You still don't make a lot of noise about what you're doing. If someone saw you in a room, they would probably still describe you the same way. Quiet. Normal. Hard to read. But what they would miss is that behind the same face, the same routine, and the same silence, your world is starting to change shape. The money is growing, the assets are growing, the investments are growing, and because you're not trying to prove anything to anyone, you stay calm while it happens. You don't rush to talk about every win, you don't post every update, you don't turn every small gain into a performance. You just keep going. That silence becomes part of the strategy. While other people need attention to feel like they're moving forward, you are learning how to let progress speak for itself. And the strangest part is that nobody around you really notices how far you've come. They still see the same person. But the person they see is no longer building from zero. He's building from momentum. And once you reach that point, everything starts to feel different. Not easier, just more real. Because now you're no longer imagining what it would be like to win. You're already living inside the early stages of it. It doesn't happen on a special day. There is no perfect timing, no dramatic soundtrack, no crowd waiting to celebrate. Just an ordinary afternoon that feels exactly like every other afternoon. You open your account the same way you've done hundreds of times before. A quick glance, a routine check, nothing unusual, then you stop. For a second, your brain doesn't process what it's seeing, so you look again. The number is still there. 7 figures. A milestone you spent years imagining has quietly become reality. You expected excitement. You expected relief. You expected some overwhelming feeling that would tell you everything had changed. Instead, there's silence. The room looks the same. The walls look the same. The world keeps moving as if nothing happened. And in a strange way, that's exactly what makes the moment feel real. Because the money isn't the surprise. The surprise is the person who earned it. The quiet kid nobody paid much attention to. The one nobody expected much from. The one who spent years building when nobody was watching. You close the account and sit there for a moment. No celebration, no announcement, no fireworks, just a quiet realization. The future you once imagined is no longer in front of you. You're living it. When you think back to the beginning, it almost feels like a different life. Back then, nobody looked at you and thought, this is the one. You were the quiet one, the one who stayed in the background, the one people assumed would live a normal, forgettable life and keep out of the way. Nobody expected you to be the first. Nobody expected you to break away from the pattern everyone else seemed willing to accept. And maybe that is exactly why it happened this way. Because while everyone else was busy looking at the louder people, the more confident people, the more obvious people, you were building something in silence, little by little, day by day, without asking for attention, without needing anyone's approval. And now the thing nobody expected has already happened. It was you, the quietest person in the family, the one nobody thought would be capable of this, the one nobody would have picked at the beginning. And that is what makes the moment hit so hard. Not just that you made it, but that you made it while everyone was still looking somewhere else. That gap between what they thought and what actually happened is the part that stays with you. Because now, when you look back, you realize the whole time was never about being the loudest person in the room. It was about becoming the person who kept going when nobody believed the story was real. And in the end, it was real. It was always real. Money changed your life, but it did not change the deepest part of it. What changed first was the feeling in your chest. The constant pressure was gone. The panic that used to sit quietly in the background was no longer controlling every decision. You could breathe differently. You could think differently. You could say no to things that once felt impossible to refuse. That was the real shift. Not the number in the account, the freedom behind it, the choices, the peace, the ability to move through life without feeling trapped by every small problem. And maybe that is the part people miss when they talk about becoming a millionaire. They imagine the cars, the houses, the visible things. But the real luxury is not money. It is not having to live in survival mode anymore. It is waking up and knowing your future is not being decided by fear. It is being able to build slowly, quietly, and on your own terms. That is what changed. Not just what you had, but who you became while earning it. Nobody expected you to be the one. Not when you were younger. Not when you sat quietly while everyone else talked. Not when people mistook your silence for a lack of ambition. And yet, here you are. Not because you were louder. Not because you demanded attention. But because you kept moving when nobody was watching. The truth is, you were never silent. You were building. While others were talking about the future, you were creating one. While others were waiting for the right moment, you were preparing for it. And that is what changed everything. One day, people might remember that you became a millionaire. But that isn't the most important part of this story. The most important part is what happens after you. The people who come next will grow up believing something different. They won't automatically assume that wealth belongs to someone else. They won't look at success and think, people like us don't do that, because someone already proved otherwise. You did. They thought you had nothing to say. The truth is, you were building a life that would speak louder than words ever could. And that is how cycles are broken. Not with noise. Not with attention, but with years of quiet work that change what an entire family believes is possible.